everyone, it's Alana and welcome to another video. This is gonna be a video about my vegan story. I have another video titled like the book that turned me vegan or something, but this is gonna be a little different. This is gonna talk about my life up to the point where I decided to go vegan and how basically unvegan that life was. Now this was requested probably 4 or 5 weeks ago by someone on Instagram, and I didn't get around to it until now because I kind of was thinking about it that whole time and wanted it to be like pretty good, and I didn't want to just make it right away. I wanted to think about exactly how I got to this point, so hopefully most of this will be thought out. Okay, so we'll start out with when I was born, basically. We're going to start from the very beginning. So when I was a baby, my two favorite foods were green beans and chicken liver. So my mom would make her own baby food, so basically she just pureed the food that she was eating and fed it to me. That's how you make baby food. Wait, I really loved chicken liver. I loved it as a baby. I guess I was kind of like, when I grew up, I was like, I still like the taste of liver, but like eating large quantities of it like bothered me, so I'm not sure why baby me loved it so much. I still do like me some green beans though, those things are awesome. So obviously I grew up in an omnivorous family, and I always loved the taste of meat, most meat. I grew up eating, and I grew up living around animals. We had lots of pets, including like livestock type pets. We had horses, which mostly in the US we don't eat horses, but we also had goats. Now most people in the US don't eat goats, but a lot of cultures do eat goats. They're actually, the goats we had were pygmy goats, and those are meat goats. So in most cultures they are raised exclusively for meat. So yeah, I was exposed to a lot of farming. My neighbors growing up were cattle farmers. I was in 4-H as a kid, so I trained dogs, and we also did goat showmanship, so it's kind of weird. Like, mostly in 4-H, if you're dealing with animals, it's like livestock that you're going to raise and then you're going to sell, and they're going to be meat. But the goats and dogs were different. Like, those were the ones that typically didn't get sold as food. Again, because in the Western US culture, we generally don't eat dogs and goats. But there were kids I knew who raised cows, pigs, sheep. Those all eventually going to be food. The sheep even, I think they would eventually sell those for mutton, or like, I don't know. I'm not sure about the sheep. Anyway, yeah, so I did all that kind of stuff. I obviously had a garden too, so learned about, you know, plant agriculture as well as animal agriculture. And I never really questioned it. It was just so instilled in my mind that, like, okay, this is what you do. Like, you raise the animals, you're nice to them, and then eventually you sell them. And that was typically what people said, was that they would sell their animal. They didn't say they were going to slaughter their animal, and they didn't do it themselves. Most of them didn't. Some people I knew did hunt and fish, so obviously they were killing animals and butchering them themselves. I never actually did any of that. I probably could do it. I don't think that would be something that would bother me at all. Again, even being vegan now, like, I am actually not sure. I'm gonna go ahead and say that I really don't know how I would react. I know that watching it didn't bother me, even like being present there with the smells and the noises and everything. None of it bothered me. I don't know why that is. I'm probably a cold-blooded killer. I have no idea. Again, I haven't actually killed anything but with my own hands, but I've seen the killing and the butchering. So, enough of that. Let's see, I grew up raising animals for, you know, pets, companion animals, and also food animals. And when I was 18 and graduated college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I'd always kind of thought that I wanted to be a veterinarian. Well, I don't really have a lot of money for college, and veterinary school can be quite expensive. It also involved me moving away from home, which I didn't want to do at the time. So I decided to go to a community college in my area that has a veterinary technology program. So I was working in the veterinary field for many years, actually almost 8 years I worked in this field. But back when I was 18, just fresh out of school, I decided I wanted to go to do this program. So this program is pretty comprehensive. During my career, I only worked in a small animal clinic where we saw 90% dogs and cats, occasional small animal, rabbits, guinea pigs, birds, but we didn't see any livestock. Although when you, and that's how most vet techs, like the large majority of them, unless they're in a rural area, that's what they do, is they just work with dogs and cats and other small companion animals. But the program forces you to go, it's comprehensive, so you have to learn about livestock, you have to raise livestock, you have to be exposed to them, you have to do all that. A lot of people in the program had never seen a horse, or never been near a horse. They'd obviously seen horses, I hope, but anyway, I had raised every type of animal that we raised in the program except for pigs. I'd had some type of interaction, or I'd personally raised one. We had to raise, let's see, there were cows, which every year they got sold, which meant that they were gonna go to the feedlot and get sold for food. But that's what they call it, they say we're selling the animal, you know? We had a horse who was just there for the students to learn on, and didn't sell the horse. They had lambs and sheep, and most of the lambs would get sold. Okay, back to the raising of the animals. In our first year we had to raise pigs. There were 4 pigs, and the class was divided into 2 teams. Each team got 2 pigs. You had to raise your pigs. There were 2, I think, as I recall, there were 2 different types of food, so we were seeing, how best to get these pigs to market weight. This is part of veterinary medicine, is taking care of livestock, making sure the livestock get to an ideal weight so that the farmer can sell them and profit the most. This is part of the industry. And I'm just explaining this to show how much knowledge I had, that I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is how it is. And there was one person in my class who was vegetarian. One that I remember. I don't think any of the other people were vegetarians. It was one person, and she actually dropped out after the first term because she was so put off by what we had to do to the farm animals that she was like, I can't do this, I don't want to be part of this. I wanted to be a vet tech. I don't, now that I realize I have to do all of this stuff. So, and I didn't, I was like, oh, well, you know, I mean, it's kind of sad, but this is the way it is. I never really gave it much of a second thought, and I was just like, yeah, meat. I probably went home after class and ate meat every day. It was just the way I did it. Alright, so anyway, we had to raise our pigs. I actually really like pigs, but I had to convince myself that I didn't like these pigs, because I was like, oh, I'm raising these and they're gonna be sold. I'm never gonna be able to keep these pigs. But the pigs were so sweet. They would play with you. They would kind of get to be a bit of a pain in the ass because they had to be raised in really small pens, and pigs are very active and curious and intelligent. They didn't fucking like that. So, of course, when you went in to clean them, they would start nibbling on you and pushing you around, and it's like, okay, yeah, they just want to, you know, play and root around, and they would tip their feed bin over every day, and you'd have to pick it up. Yeah. So, I mean, they were characters. But I was like, oh yeah, and the general consensus in the class was like, the pigs are a pain in the ass, and I'm glad I'm gonna, you know, be able to eat bacon after they go to the slaughter. So, yeah, I mean, that was the attitude. And it is sort of a mind fuck, like, you gotta convince yourself that you don't like this animal, even though you're, you know, supposed to be in school learning to help animals, but part of the industry is learning how best to get them big enough to eat. Like, we had, I mean, in nutrition classes, probably more nutrition classes than a doctor for humans takes. Because you have to learn what's the ideal macros to give an animal so that it can grow the fastest to be sold for food. I mean, this is the sort of shit that, and I mean, vet techs we had at least one term of nutrition. Veterinarians probably have a whole year. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, it's serious business, people. Like, and it's like, yeah, part of the nutrition class is like, oh yeah, what should dogs eat? What should somebody's pet dog eat for like a certain health condition, disease, or allergy? That's a large part of it. But a lot of the class for like large animal science was, how the fuck do you get these things big enough to be somebody's dinner? Anyway, we also had to castrate lambs, dock their tails. Yeah, I did it. I had the they get castrated with a rubber band. You put a rubber band over their testicles. I personally did that. I personally took a hot blade and chopped the tail. It cuts and cauterizes in the same swipe. Supposedly non-painful, no anesthesia used. I participated in that because I had to. This was part of my class. I'm not going to say where I went to school. I don't want anybody to know. I don't want any harassment. This video is not so that you can be like, oh, I'm gonna get so mad and harass this place. No. This is I'm sharing my own personal experience. This is the industry, and this is what I participated in. And do I feel guilty about it? I mean, not really. Everyone did it, and it's a cultural norm. And I can't say I don't feel a little bit guilty, because it's like, yeah, but it's not the same guilt I would feel if I, you know, accidentally killed somebody and didn't say anything about it and nobody found out. Because that, you're always taught, is wrong. And guilt is largely instilled upon you by the culture. Like, you don't necessarily have inherent guilt. Anyway, it's complicated, but I don't really have much guilt about this stuff that I did, because it was totally seen as normal and just the regular thing, and oh yeah, this is not bad, like, they don't really feel pain, and I mean, they must feel pain. There's no question. But the fact that, you know, they get this procedure done, and then not even an hour later, like 20 minutes later, they run, and they're running around. Anyway, let's not get into that too much. So I did that. What else did I even do? I, you know, gave the antibiotics, injections that the animals get. Oh yeah, pregnancy checks on the cows. So for cattle, you inseminate them. Didn't participate in that. That's done by a veterinarian, and it's not part of our deal. But basically, had to get the cows into a stanchion, which is a big metal, like, sort of like a cage, but it's something that holds them in place while keeping their head and, like, the butthole, like, and we'll get to why in a minute, and the sides, like, open so that you can do stuff to them while they're in there. So yeah, we put the cattle in there. Had to give them antibiotics, had to tag their ears, so we took a crimper thing. I don't remember what it's called. I mean, this is like 10 years ago, people. So I had to tag their ears, so you put a metal tag on, or it was a tattoo. You know, I honestly cannot remember. Was it a tattoo or a tag? A metal tag? It was something, some sort of mark on the ear. And the other procedure we did to them was a pregnancy check. So, the pregnancy checks basically is where you have to put your arm like at least elbow deep into the cow's butt. And if you do that, you can feel, because the uterus is kind of up against the colon there, you can kind of feel like, oh, is there a baby, is there a calf in there? And you know, it's probably very unpleasant for the cow, but everybody, you know, they can't do anesthesia. I mean, doing an anesthesia on an animal that big is off the wall ridiculous. Like, the thing, it takes a huge team of people, and it's like very complicated to get a horse down for anesthesia. It takes a whole team of people and like all day, and so for surgery, you know, sometimes have to put a horse under anesthesia, but it's really something people try to avoid. So that's like largely the reason why the bigger animals don't get anesthesia, is it's just, you know, there's so many of them, and it's a process. Even with the lambs, it's a big process of, yeah, you gotta process all these 50 lambs going through, and you gotta do it all in one day, and they're up and running, and a couple minutes later with anesthesia it would take them hours to get back. And you gotta go put them out in the field, you can't watch them. It's like, I agree that it's wrong that the industry even exists. It's unnecessary. But people are always like, oh, it's so cruel to do it without anesthesia. Well, it's very impractical to do it with anesthesia, so that's why it's not done. It's not on purpose to be cruel. Just an aside. There's nothing where people are like, oh yeah, I really want to torture animals, so I'm going to do all of these likely painful procedures without anesthetic. Well, yeah, but you're going to do them with anesthetic, it's going to be absolutely a nightmare. I mean, there'd be no way the industry would have gotten to the point that it is if there had been a law or a mandate in order that, like, oh yeah, all of your farm animals, if you're going to do any sort of procedure like tail docking or a pregnancy check that might be unpleasant or painful, you have to do it under anesthesia. Then nobody would be eating beef. 'Cause it's, so yeah, that's, so yeah, I did the pregnancy check, you know, it was kind of like, oh yeah, great, a cow's butt, I get to put my hand up there, it's kind of cool, you can feel the fetus. What else did we do? The sheep, the cows, the pigs, all we really did was raise them to get fat, and then when we left for winter break, came back, they were gone. The farmer does sell all the animals when we're going on break, just so nobody gets, you know, and the timing just works out that way. What else did I do? We visited sorry, there's something in my eye. We visited a dairy farm, and something my instructor said about that was, a lot of people will tell you that there's like pus, blood, disgusting, you know, nastiness in milk. There really isn't, guys. I mean, milk, now I'm not saying there's none, but it's not an amount that you would ever need to worry about. Do I think milk is disgusting? I think it's weird to drink milk that comes from another mammal, but is it disgusting? No, it's not. I mean, it's not disgusting for a baby cow to drink it, so it shouldn't be disgusting for you to drink it. It's weird as fuck, but it's not gross. I mean, it depends on what your definition of gross is, but a lot of people say, oh, it's gross because there's pus, there's mucus. No, I mean, it's milk. It's just proteins and sugar. And the reason I'm pretty confident, and this might not be, I mean, I'm sure sometimes milk is contaminated, but there are tests done on these huge trucks of milk. If it's found to be contaminated and impure, the farmer has to purchase that truck of milk. It can't be sold. So they would lose so much money. They really, 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 really try to keep their facilities clean, keep all their cows, like, you know, their udders not infected, because if the udders are infected, that's where pus could get in the milk. Now, pus is like white blood cells, and something that gets produced to fight infection, it's not just something that's in milk. There's probably a little bit of it in there, just because that's how the body works. It gets shit all up and everywhere. But but it's not like if you drink it, you're going to be drinking tons of pus cells. You're going to be drinking a negligible amount, and it's not going to hurt you. So, anyway. Although I do think that drinking milk is probably, like, not a good idea for adults, like, especially the milk of another mammal. But it's not the fact that there's pus in there. There may be a little bit of pus. Probably not, though. But if it were in there, that's not what would be harmful about drinking it. Anyway, just have to put that out there because I see so many people being, that's why milk's disgusting. And it's like, no. Alright, so anyway, like, the dairy farm that I visited, and I've actually been to a couple, because I've been to one when I was younger. This one we got to go inside and see everything, and like, yeah, that place actually didn't really seem very cruel to me. It was very organized and processy, just like the other procedures that get done, but the milking is like, yeah, all the cows sort of know what's going on and they just kind of follow the routine. What I have not witnessed is the birth of a calf and the taking away of the calf from the mom. Had I witnessed that, I think it may have swayed me a little bit in the direction of this is something that makes me uncomfortable. I didn't really think about that at all. Because, and I mean, I'll admit it openly, like, it's not something I really wanted to put too much thought into. I didn't want to think critically about what I was eating and drinking because I did like the taste of meat, milk, and cheese. Okay? I think I am about through with all my farm animal experiences. What else? Oh no, I'm not. Okay, so another thing I had to do in the tech program was go to a pig farm where we saw the pigs in the little pens, and that place, I think I probably started thinking about eating a lot less pig after I visited there, just because I realized how intelligent they were after watching them and seeing them shoved into a dark barn with tiny little crates that they would have when they had babies, because they didn't want the mom pig. Pigs get real big, guys. If you get a chance, like, go to the state fair in your state, or the county fair even, and check out the livestock and the pigs. You'll see how big they get. It's freaking amazing. I'm not talking about little teacup pigs, or those, what are those that people keep as pets, like the one George Clooney has. I can't remember what breed that is. Potbelly pigs. The big market hogs, those things are fucking enormous. So they keep they keep them in pens with the, like, a little ledge around the wall that the babies can go under, so the mom doesn't just roll over and crush her baby on accident, because that can happen. Anyway, I didn't really like the pig farm. It was unsettling to me, but I mean, you just put this stuff out of your mind. Like, you see it and you're like, this is how it's done, okay, and if you like eating the food enough, you just make peace with it, or you forget it, or you just accept it, and that's what I had done. And the last thing I'm going to talk to you about the experiences I had with seeing animals killed and butchered. Actually, the sheep that I saw, we didn't see the sheep get killed. We went to a farm, and the farmer already had the sheep out ready to go. It was already, already had its throat slit. And we just saw the butchering. So he slit it, took guts out, cut out everything, skinned it, all that. And it was like, it smelled kind of weird, unpleasant-ish, like not a smell that you'd want to smell all the time, but if you did, you'd get used to it. The sight of it was like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of gross looking, but it's like that kind of thing. It has never really bothered me. Like surgery doesn't bother me at all. So it's just basically like surgery, except that there's less blood. That's really the only way I can describe it. I mean, most of you probably haven't even seen surgery, but if you have, that's what a butchering is like. The other thing I saw a couple years ago, oh, it was probably like 5 years ago now, my mom and I were thinking about raising rabbits for meat. We wanted to figure out how do people kill and butcher rabbits. So we went to somebody's farm to see how it was done. They take the rabbits out in a covered box so the rabbit can't see the other rabbits being killed, because that raises their stress level and it's just not fun for them. I mean, none of it's fun for them, but this is what people say. And they had a little, like a board with a little metal hook in it that came out like that, so you could take the rabbit. Okay, so this pretends is like a board with a little hook. You take the rabbit, slide its head along here, and you can put its neck right here, and when you pull back really, you have to do it really quick, really hard, very definite pop. It would pop the neck, break the rabbit's neck. So that was how they killed him. The rabbit, there couldn't have possibly been any pain in that death, because it was done so quickly. The only way you could make it hurt is if you fucked it up, and even then there might be so much spinal damage that it probably wouldn't hurt, because the nerves would be disconnected from the brain. I'm just guessing, but the way that this woman we witnessed doing it, the way she did it, it was like that rabbit had no idea. Like, there was no pain, it was just poof, gone. And then she butchered it, and we had gone there with the intention of trying the killing ourselves, but I think both of us were a little hesitant about it after we saw it, and sure, we didn't end up deciding to raise rabbits. We never did that, because we were both like, and this is, I think my mom didn't really want to kill them, but we got some of the meat to take home with us, and we were both like, well, we don't really like the meat. We don't really like the way it tastes. It tasted alright, but I think we just didn't want to kill the rabbit. Anyway, so that's my total of experience raising animals and witnessing livestock raising. What else is there? So, I'm vegan now. The reason I'm vegan now is I read that book, thought about it a lot, and decided, like, you know, this isn't right, and I just can't justify it to myself. And the only way I arrived at the conclusion of it's not right was to give it a lot of critical thinking and argue it out with myself, and that's the step that a lot of people don't take. Because what I've seen since I've been vegan is a lot of people who aren't vegan either have no idea about how brutal the industry is, and you guys, I didn't even see the most brutal parts. I never went to a feedlot, I never went to a slaughterhouse, I never saw a factory farm. I didn't get inside one of those, and I've seen this stuff on the internet. I know how it looks. I've basically seen probably the best and the worst of this industry, because I've seen somebody who raises their animals with genuine kindness and kills them in the absolutely kindest way that you could possibly kill somebody. And I've seen Earthlings, and I've seen how brutal, like, the feedlot and the slaughterhouse can be. And none of it is, now, so the CAFOs, the concentrated animal feeding organizations, or the factory farming, is definitely immoral. Is killing an animal for food immoral? Like if you're doing it in the method that I described for the rabbits. In my opinion, that's not immoral. That's just unnecessary. Because I don't need the meat to sustain myself. I don't need those calories. I can get this from food from other sources. And in fact, you know, the rabbit meat wasn't as good as like ham or steak. So I probably wouldn't choose to eat that over a seitan burger. The disconnect a lot of people have is they don't really think critically about this. And the people who are, you know, raised on farms and just think that's the way it is, it's because they haven't thought critically about, are they really okay with it? Does it really make sense? Can they really justify it? And some of them can. And some of them have thought it through, and some of them have read the same material I have. The author of the book that I read that really made me start thinking about this stuff, like, he's not even vegan. He's not even vegetarian. And he wrote an entire book about how weird it is that some animals get absolutely elevated and adored by most of society, and other animals just are looked at as livestock, as food, as property, and just, yeah, let's get it big enough for market so we can sell it. People just don't think about how strange that is, and how unnecessary, and how possibly immoral it is. And the people who do are like, oh, well, yeah, I don't think factory farming is right, so I buy, you know, only grass-fed meat. And there's not very many people who are able to do that, because grass-fed beef, raising it is really difficult. It takes a lot of space and energy and time. And that's, you know, McDonald's wouldn't be able to sustain that sort of practice. So, when I first thought of making this video, I came in with the intention of saying that the way people think about animals is some type of brainwashing. I've since kind of changed my mind about using that term, because cultural cultural influence isn't necessarily brainwashing. It's not like people really tried to force these beliefs on you. In some cases, I think that people are sort of brainwashed, and that they don't try to think for themselves, but at the same time, if you're told something since you were a little kid, and you just learn it that way, and you don't, I mean, critical thinking skills are learned, you're not born with them. So if somebody tells you that chicken is food, and even if you grow up on a farm, if somebody tells you that, hey, we've got these chickens, when they get big enough they're going to get sold, and then one day you'd connect that, hey, I'm eating chicken, this is what we're raising, this must, you know, this is the same thing, this comes from this. I mean, you're just gonna, like, it's hard for me to think about now, because one of the big reasons I went vegan was like, do I have a good argument for eating meat? No, not really, I just like the way it tastes. So that's not, you know, that doesn't hold up all these arguments for not eating meat. It doesn't hold up against. So, I mean, this is my personal experience. I know it's, for a lot of people, it takes even less, like, effort to decide they don't want to eat meat. I knew one vegetarian person when I was growing up, when I was going to school, to K through 12, grade school. She had been vegetarian since I knew her, since a very young age. And for her, it was just like, eating animals in her mind was just wrong. It was just completely morally wrong. And there was absolutely no question for her. And for me, it wasn't the opposite. I didn't think eating animals is absolutely right. eating animals is completely morally right. I never had that thought. I just had the thought that I ate animals, and that's what I did, and that's how it was. So it's a dogma. That's what it is it's just this dogma of people eat meat, and people eat meat that's been raised in horrible conditions, and then people don't even think, even if they think about how wrong it is, they still eat it. Which is, on one hand, depressing and sad, but on the other, it's like, okay, there's more of a chance now that there are such terrible ways in which most of the meat that people eat is raised, that people are going to abandon eating meat entirely. But a big part of it's just changing your consciousness, like, and deciding that you're going to change. And so many people have trouble with that because it's hard. It's hard to change, and yeah, I really just wanted to share my story and hope maybe people can get something out of this, or just enjoy hearing the story. Didn't even touch on my thoughts about my experience and thoughts about animal research. Probably warrants a whole video of its own. So, okay, this is going to be it for this video, everybody. Hope that this was interesting, insightful, illuminating. And I'll see you in the next video. And if there's anything else you want me to expand upon, you can leave me a comment, try to answer you there, or if you have an idea of another video I could make, something that you want me to expand upon that might be video length, go ahead and suggest that down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.